This morning I came across a Hacker News post and I basically had to make this content because I see a lot of side projects that come across my table of people who want to work for me. And what I found on Hacker News was this app, Grandma's Word. I want to talk about this in a bit. But before I do, let me give you a quick overview of what this is about today. We are talking about the crucial aspects of side projects, some interesting aspects, and then later on also the aspects that are not so important when I evaluate side projects. My name is Till Carlos and I'm a technical product manager and I have my own company. We're building products. And today we're talking about side projects because it happens more and more that people have some time in between jobs and now they're making side projects. And I really endorse this. This is amazing. Once you have a side project, you have public demonstration of work. And for us in the hiring area or the business owners, for us it's also super important to see someone who actually did a side project, because people with side projects are proven to be better at the actual job because they have done all the reps before, they have done all the investment, they have had so much time to figure out stuff for themselves that they don't need to use that time when they actually work for me, for example. But first, this is what I saw today on Hacker News. It was actually quite cool. So someone made this thing called Grandma's Word. It's here at grandmasword.com. And you're able to just put in something and guess a word. So let's put in something like Apple, for example. And now I see that, okay, it's alphabetically after Apple. So now I should not guess something with B, maybe something with G. I'm not going to complete this game here because it takes quite some time. On Hacker News, the discussion is quite interesting. Some people took like 13, 14 takes. And some people even built their own crawler or this dictionary app in order to figure out what the solution is. And it's actually interesting. So the one thing that I was noticed while I was using this app is it would be awesome if there would be a bit of a more explanation of what this person did, because this would exactly hit our criteria for side projects. So let's go through them really quick. Yeah, so this is basically what I was asking on Twitter now. If you could only see one applicant side project, how would you evaluate that? And I had to make my mind up because it's not so straightforward. So we're going to talk about the ranks, crucial, interesting, and optional. And the crucial thing is only once. And this is the thing that I often see people doing wrong. What is their contribution of this app? Because sometimes people work in teams and then they have a company URL. Let's say someone would tell me they work for Shopify. Okay, great. They send me the Shopify URL. This is totally worthless because I have no idea what they did. I can log in, I create an account, but I don't know what is the actual part that they worked on. And for that, later on, we would need a blog post for this. But this is probably something that happens quite a lot. People just send me URLs and I have no idea what to do with that. An interesting aspect though is, why did you build it? So this is something I often ask people when they send me something, because sometimes they just have a motivation that's not really relevant to making a side project. And this often happens when those things are made in a coding school. There's this coding school called Microverse, and I don't know if it exists still, but they did a lot of Ruby on Rails. And I have to say, every single time I saw an example of a side project from Microverse, it was almost always a bad candidate. They would almost always make a blog that they put online on back then Heroku, and it would always look the same, and it would always look shitty, and there was nothing interesting about it. Those people, usually you couldn't even work with them. People only doing something in order to get the next job. So usually those people are not the best coders. This is just the fact. People who do this intrinsically, they have an interesting problem that they want to solve. Those are the best people to hire. Okay, the next thing is it complete? And now this is something super interesting, because if someone is actually able to finish something that they started, then something like that is actually finished looks vastly different from something that is just a proof of concept or is just put there and only works halfway. Maybe an app that is online, but the database connection got lost and it's not really online anymore. Or something where you can maybe do one thing, but you cannot do the other three features that you would assume it has. And then also, if something is made, are the edge cases covered? Do they have error messages, or does it just break with a 500 error? So all these things are things that I look for when I evaluate a side project. And also super important, can I log in myself? Sometimes they just have a login, or even maybe a sign up with a broken email and then you don't get a login and you can't log in. So you need to be able to actually use it in order to make your mind up if that's something that's interesting. The next thing, and I group this here into the is it complete? How deep did someone go? So is it like a blog, like a tutorial that was just copied from somewhere and put online, or is it actually an interesting problem to solve. And there you see a lot about a candidate. When I look at something and I ask them, why did they do this? Or what's interesting about it? How deep did you go on this? Then something super interesting comes out. And yeah, there are people just using tutorials. Like this guy here, there's just no value. It's just a Ruby on Rails starter template, adding 3 things, and that's it. I feel like in this world, we're just getting more and more crap content and less really interesting stuff. What's important here is once something interesting comes up, like this thing here, which I don't even think a grandma actually coded this. If something completes like this pops up with a URL that actually works and you can actually use it, okay, with error messages, which is actually cool. Those people get all the praise. So these are the people we need to find as business owners. The next thing is, what's the actual tech stack? And I would often like to see more of this, more explanation of why something is done a certain way. For example, here, well, we use mostly Ruby on Rails, and our JavaScript framework is either Stimulus.js, it's Vue, or it's React. Here, I don't know what it is because there's no blog post. And now I could go in and see what they actually used. Okay, so it's plain JavaScript, great. I mean, this is cool. If this is documented like that, it's actually cool. But then in the end, I would also need to know. So usually I don't inspect the code or the front end code of a side project like this. It would be nice to have a note like, are you interested in how I built this? Look into the source code. This would be perfect. Even better would be a really good explanation of what they did. And there's one really good example here, which is called how I created 175 fonts. So this guy, he sells fonts for games. So I think I read the half of the thing. It's super interesting. And he uses Rust in order to build it. So he takes these pixelized things, the pixelized fonts that he probably just designed himself, and then he outlines them. And how to outline them, there's like an algorithm involved, which is actually interesting. And so this whole thing is a really nice read. So if you want to find it, it's chevyray.dev/blog. Yeah, so something like this would be way more important even than a side project that is still online. Just put a blog post in and show what you did. Next thing is, and this is now we come to the 2 less important things. How long did it take them? It's great to see if someone would actually do an estimation. Like, I think this takes a week to code, and then after that reflect and say it actually took 2 weeks. And we try to do this on this channel. I have another video about software estimation online, and this is interesting, but it's not so important for a technical role. And it's more from a managerial perspective, and that someone is able to track their time. And now the last thing is, how is the design? I would say it's not so important just because someone can take Tailwind, can take a template, can take a design system and just copy paste stuff, and it would usually look good. But if it looks consistent, it's a nice bonus. But in general, it's much more important to have a technical problem that is actually solved. And yeah, for a backend developer, it's even less important. But even more important as a backend developer is having an explanation of how something was made. And that is, again, where the blog post comes in. So if you find a developer who has a side project and they explain what they did, usually those people are just the A players you want to hire. If you want to know about the software estimation process we have, you can see this video.